All right, folks, welcome one and all to the Friday, April 22nd edition of the Signals from Mars live stream. I welcome to the show a bunch of patrons. We have Johan in Sweden. We have Brad in Utah. We have Mike Jones in New Jersey. We have Metal Dan in California. Steve Hoker in Roxbury, New Jersey. We have Anthony in Ireland. We have Jeremy in, I always say Manchester, but it's Cheshire, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. See, I'm starting to pronounce it correctly as well. I don't want to get more hate mail from the UK saying that I don't pronounce the names of the towns correctly. So anyway, we are all here today to talk about concerts, live shows, just the different experiences that we've had over the years. I've sent these guys a bunch of different questions. There are people that that weren't able to make it tonight who have also submitted their answers. So I'll be reading that as the show goes on as well. So to kick things off, we're going to talk about everyone's first show. Let's see, since we have Johan at the top and he's past midnight like myself here. Johan, what was your first show that you ever saw?
Thank you, Victor. My first show was the Swedish band Treat. I don't know if any of you guys remember them. They are still around. It was December 1985 in our old ice hall in my hometown. They have just released their album Scratch and Bite. I guess there were around 1,000 people, and that was the first time that I was allowed to go out late. I remember I had, gloves with studs on, and they played a really good show. I was in front of the stage, and I can honestly say that night obviously changed my life, but because I'm still going to shows without the studs. That was my first concert. A real good one.
Yeah.
Treat in Ljungby.
Treat has Key Marcello in the band, correct? Who ended up in Europe later on. Or am I mixing it up?
Yeah, you're thinking about the band Easy Action.
Easy Action. There you go. All right. I'm mixing up my my early hard rock metal bands from Sweden there. So all right, awesome. Brad Dahl, who I'm sure is about to pull out some obscure reference about his first show being, something like, yeah, I saw Black Sabbath at a restaurant. But I don't want to spoil the story, Brad. What was your first show?
Yeah, Black Sabbath at a Burger King. No, actually, I've already talked about this with you, but I'll try to put a different spin on it. Maybe the shirt will give it away.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I was 15. In fact, I got the date here. I actually looked this up because I thought, well, when was this? So December 19th, 1975. My brother, CEO Dave, who as a child, him and I didn't always see eye to eye, mostly because he was beating the crap out of me most of the time. But I love him to death. He's the best brother in the world, and I can't say enough good about him. So anyway, out of the kindness of his heart, he agreed to take me to see Blue Oyster Cult, who at the time was probably my favorite band. And so it was Blue Oyster Cult, Kansas, and Ted Nugent. It was Ted Nugent's first foray as a solo act. He just released that first solo album with all the great songs on it, Stranglehold and all that. And it's interesting because I read a review of this concert where the reviewer talked about Ted Nugent blowing the other bands away and that they were afraid to come on after he left. And I saw something about them actually cutting the lights when he was playing his last song because he was playing too long. And I don't remember that happening. I don't remember. I remember, because it's the first time I've ever been in an arena. This is at the Long Beach Sports Arena, which is, 12,000 people or so. And I remember walking in there and just overwhelmed by the sound of the PA cranking out music, and I just knew. I mean, it spoke to my heart. It's like, I love this, and I love this so much. And we had pretty decent seats on the floor. I think we're like 18th row or something like that. And I remember sitting there in our seat and looking up, and you couldn't see the top of the arena because it was so filled with smoke. Back then, 1975, you could smoke cigarettes everywhere. There was probably smoking a lot of other things in there as well. I also remember that there were like people were throwing frisbees like crazy, so you had to have your head on a swivel. Otherwise, it was fun just to watch people get clocked in the head with a frisbee because they weren't paying attention. And also, it's the first time I've ever. This is probably the beginning of my toxicology experience. Is that I saw a guy who'd overdosed on something and was laying in a pool of vomit after the show. Yeah. And I loved. I thought the fact everybody's walking by this guy, nobody's like, "Hey, are you all right?" or anything. And I thought, oh, well, that's what you're supposed to do. Somebody passes out, you just leave them there. And but part of me was thinking, dude, you missed like the most incredible experience ever, musical experience. I didn't know much about Kansas. I didn't know anything about Ted Nugent. It was great, but when Blue Oyster Cult hit the stage, it just lit up my life. Again, I was just hook, line, and sinker. I was all in on this. I wanted more, and I wanted a lot more. It was a fantastic show. So thank you, CEO Dave, for taking me to that. Because as a 15-year-old person, there's no way I could have got there by myself. And I think my parents would have let me go if I had somebody to take me. But I mean, they didn't know. They didn't care. No, they didn't, because CEO Dave being such a hooligan, he kind of paved the way for them ignoring me. So I got to do a lot of things that it's just like, well, he's not causing trouble like the CEO, so we'll just let him do whatever he wants. Thanks, CEO. All right, there you go.
So my story is going to come up last, but it also has medical implications as well. So we'll see. Yours is pretty outrageous, but I don't know. I think you'll like mine as well. We'll see.
Awesome.
Mike Jones, our Mike Jones, not to be confused with the one that John Bush and the rest of Armored Saint know up in Boston. Mike, what was your first concert going experience?
Although if John Bush doesn't want to be my friend, I'm open to it. So we'll go with that. For me, also age 15, my older brother, Dave, funny enough, landed us tickets to Motley Crue opening for Ozzy Osbourne on the Bark at the Moon tour.
Oh, wow.
That was my first show, March of '84, Nichols Arena in Denver. Incredible experience. And yeah, it definitely sparked a fire for me to want to go see more. I mean, I can still picture that moment, sitting there, house lights go down, goes quiet, and in the beginning starts playing from, Shout at the Devil, and the whole place is just vibrating. It was absolutely insane. Jake Ely playing guitar for Ozzy, that show was just absolutely on fire. It was just an absolutely incredible, probably the perfect first concert experience for me, to just, you knew every word to every song, every person in there. It was just absolutely your best friend, and it totally blew me away.
So you've been helping Vince fill out vocals since the early 80s. You were helping bridge those gaps where he's gasping for air even back then.
Oh yeah. Anytime Vince held out the mic, I was there to fill in.
There you go. I mean, that's one of those magical tours that we've all heard about. I mean, obviously written about in the dirt. Kind of played out in the movie as well. And I mean, I know that a lot of people look back and kind of poo-poo those Jake years because of what Ozzy was doing and whatnot. And I mean, it's hard to recover after Randy, but I mean, that's, to me, I'm envious, because Shout at the Devil is one of my all-time favorite albums. That was Motley Crue at, in my opinion, if not at their peak, very close to their peak. Those first 3 albums for me are my favorite by them. And then Bark at the Moon is an album that I've listened to over and over and over again. So, I mean, that's just such an awesome story. Not to say that Johan and Brad's stories were not great, and that everyone else's isn't. It's just that I think that's one of these tours where you hear about Motley Crue and Ozzy, Metallica and Ozzy, stuff like that, where they're tours of legends that, all these years later, 40 years later, hard to believe, are still being talked about. So, so my brother Art is saying hello in the chat. I want to say hello back. Also, his birthday was last week. Also, we didn't have the show. Just want to say happy birthday once again to him.
Happy birthday, Art.
Yeah, happy birthday, Art. Should we sing to him?
Well, do we want to have dogs howling in all parts of the world? Is that our game there? But
come on.
Not all
so I won't sing to him.
Not all of us have the voluptuous voice that you do, Brad. So
I don't know. I think Steve could give me a run for my money. No,
I don't know.
Okay.
Nope.
Come on,
Metal
Steve, you got a red
Dan.
jersey.
All right, Dan, what is the first show that you got to see?
Mine is September of 1984 in Irvine, California, with Lita Ford opening, followed by Y&T and Twisted Sister on the Stay Hungry tour as the headliner.
Wow, there you go, Steve. You've got
jealous.
Yeah, another member, another sick motherfucker.
I'm a sick motherfucker. That's right. Yeah, I mean, D fired the crowd.
I knew I liked you, D.
See that? Any recollections about that show?
I was young, 14, 15, 16, something like that. My sister had to drive me there and drop me off, and she did whatever and picked me and a friend up later. So thanks to having family, I was too young to drive, and it's Irvine Meadows is now gone. It's now apartments, but back then it was one of the places to be. I know who else would probably go there from Utah, Brad. It was, just amazing. Y&T with Dave Menichetti was on the In Rock We Trust tour, and we were all
his big pink outfit.
I don't remember if he was wearing the pink, but it probably was because they were being vibrant at the time. But we were big fans of Black Tiger and all that. We already knew Y&T. We already knew Twisted Sister. We were already with the 2 previous albums. So, I mean, and then D just fires up. I don't remember what the rant was, but, at the end of the night, he gets, he breaks it down and gets everybody worked up. It was amazing. And ever since, I've been an SMF ever since.
There you go. Awesome. Steve, your first show.
My first show was Skid Row with Pantera opening for them.
Okay.
So that's an interesting combo there.
Yeah. Well, another tour that was definitely during the Headbangers Ball years. They did a special from that. They had Ace Frehley come out and do Cold Gin with them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I interviewed Rex, he talked about the fact that they were outselling Skid Row with their albums, but that thanks to Skid Row and their ballads, they were starting to get more airplay than they were. So he was proud of the fact that they didn't need ballads to move albums. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, it was in '92, and it was in the parking lot of the Meadowlands.
Okay. Yeah, I remember.
It was like a summer concert venue or.
Yeah, so in the Meadowlands, because the Brendan Byrne Arena, which is now Nickelodeon Center, or what the hell is it? It's an amusement park, or it's something.
Last I remembered, it was the Izod Center, but I don't think that anymore.
No, well, they've taken 20 years and billions of dollars to refurbish the entire area. It's been one of the biggest scandals in New Jersey, and that's either Xanadu or the Nickelodeon amusement park. Right
Yeah.
now. But anyway,
I forget what it's called.
so during the summers, Bruce Springsteen would do like a month's worth of shows there. And this is something that someone wrote me. It's going to refer to other bands, but Springsteen would do 30 nights or 23 nights or something like that. And every night was different. So this stuff about playing the same set list for 40 years was definitely didn't apply. So since he was in the Brendan Byrne Arena, they had that summer concert series out in the parking lot.
Okay.
So that's why they played there. Every summer they had that, and they had the fair there, which, you know, you'd go see those rides and you were like, wow, this is like a death waiting to happen. They're all like death traps that you're staring at. But yeah, they would have that every summer. So that makes sense. That is now actually where the new stadium is, the MetLife Stadium. So yeah, so my brother's saying Meadowlands Arena, formerly Brendan Byrne Arena, Continental Airlines Arena, and Izod Center is an inactive indoor arena located in the Meadowlands Sports Complex. No, it's very active at the moment. Believe me, there are videos on the internet. Anyway, anything else that stood out to you about the show, Steve?
The people I went to it was kind of a weird mix, and I honestly think I got invited because I had the license.
So you're like the member of the band that had the PA.
Yes, exactly. But the fun thing is, the one guy that I went with, his dad like, you're just learning to drive. I mean, I was probably driving for like 6 months at that point, and
Right.
he was like, you know what if we rent a van and, you know, it'll take you to the show? I was like, all right, cool. So four of us piled into a van. Well, not really piling when there's four of us.
Right.
And so that was cool, you know. And
Yeah, I'm just
it was
curious
just
why he felt you needed a van. Were there other things that you guys were transporting here?
no, I don't know why.
I hope you got
My mom and his dad were like, okay, that's cool. You know, we'll rent you a van. I don't know if it was cheaper or I don't know. I didn't ask.
It's cool.
But yeah, so it was. Oh wait, I'm sorry. There were five of us. I was friends with everybody, but my one friend, his little brother came, who was probably 3 years younger than us.
Right.
And then one of our other friends, he brought one of his friends from out of state, and they had, I don't know if they had better seats or if they just made better seats for themselves, because we were kind of at the end,
Right.
and they just like were in the pit somewhere, and it was just, yeah, so that was cool seeing my first concert. But I just remember like my friend and I were just hanging out, listening to the show, watching it, having a good time, and then we finally meet up at the van later or afterwards. I don't even know what that is. But and our other friend is like, I lost my tooth, and we're like, oh my god, you're all right? He's like, it's the best. Like, okay. He was like, oh, Pantera came on, I got punched in the face. I was like, hey, if you consider that a good time, I was happy just standing by seat.
Hey, different strokes for different folks, right? So there you go.
And they just looked like they had been in the pit for the whole night.
Well,
You know,
he will always
sleeves
remember. He'll always remember
sleeves
losing
missing.
his tooth, right? To Pantera.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's why I whistle when I talk. Pantera 92.
There you go. Awesome. Anthony, what was your first show?
It was August 83. So I was, 12? and I have the ticket right here. It was that.
Nice.
Oh wow, Black Sabbath, 83.
Yeah.
So Geezer Butler, I see Tony
Ian
Iommi,
Gillan.
Bill Ward, and Ian Gill. Oh wow, cool. So it was the Born Again tour.
Yeah, and it was a outdoor all day festival thing.
Okay.
So we had Mama's Boys opened it. I don't know if anyone knows those. They're an Irish
Yep.
band.
Yeah, I've
And
seen them.
They were like, we were huge fans of Mama's Boys at the time, so it was really exciting to see them first. And then we had Anvil, and then Twisted Sister, who were amazing, best band of the day. And then Motorhead, it was another Perfect Day tour. So we had Brian Robertson playing guitar, and that was the loudest thing I've ever heard. Like since then, I've never heard anything as loud as that.
Right.
Like I was 12, and it was outdoor football stadium thing where it was set up crossways, so if you were at the back, you weren't that far away. So
Right.
my dad brought myself and my younger brother. My older brothers were able to go into the crowd, whereas we were up in a stall, I guess you call it, and just directly across watching the whole day. And so Motorhead, it was just, you had to just do that for the entire set, and you couldn't differentiate one song from the next. It was so loud.
Right.
And so that was It was extremely exciting. I wasn't that familiar with Black Sabbath at the time, because I'd only gotten into music like 2 years earlier. We just hadn't gotten as far as Black Sabbath yet. I do remember Paranoid being played, and Smoke in the Water, actually, they played.
Right.
Do you remember who was drumming for them at that time?
Bevan.
Okay,
Yeah.
Bevan. Yeah. Okay. How did he do? Because all the recordings I hear, all the boots, you can barely hear the drums, and I've just tried to get my head around him playing in Black Sabbath. How did it seem to you? I know you weren't that familiar with the music.
Do you know what? I can't really remember. I do actually, during the Black Sabbath set, we went down to the crowd, and it wasn't a particularly well attended gig. And I spent about 3 songs on my older brother's shoulders. So
nice. Was his name Dave?
No, it was Paul. So
can we call him Dave?
My older brother Dave was there. But,
yeah, you got an older brother Dave. All right.
But I have distinct memories of being, not that far, like on the shoulders, and not that far from the stage. Maybe, I don't know, 30 foot or something, and looking at Tony Iommi, as clear as crystal in front of me doing that. And I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. Then we went and got Lemmy's autograph. He was signing at the side of the stage.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was an amazing first gig. I'm really chuffed to have had that. My first experience.
That's beyond awesome. And like you're saying, you weren't that versed in Sabbath, but looking back at it, realizing Gillan is there, realizing that a member of ELO is drumming, there's so many like oddities to it. But
absolutely. Yeah
and
even the Motorhead set, as bizarre as it was, with Brian Robertson with really short hair and I think it was a pink jumpsuit, like head to toe in like pink puffy tracksuit.
Yeah, maybe it was Dave Manfredi.
Yeah, but for Motorhead, it was just so weird.
Yeah, well, he towards the end, he was wearing shorts on stage. I remember that.
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
That's one of the things that would piss Lemmy off, was that he would just go out in like track shorts and just play. He didn't kind of give a damn about whether he fit the rest of the ambiance that the band was trying to portray. So yeah, that's awesome. That's a stacked bill.
But Twisted Sister were absolutely incredible that day. Dee Snider just giving it everything.
Yeah.
And it was in the middle of the day in a quarter-filled football stadium, might as well have been sold out for all he was concerned.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. That's awesome. Jeremy, your first show.
Yeah, I'm going to cheat a little bit because my first show was a very small gig at Northgate Arena in Chester in 1981, and it was 3 bands called Chevy, Limelight, and Alien. But I'm not going to talk about that because I haven't got very many memories of that show. But I want to talk about the first big gig that I went to, which was very soon after, and that was Whitesnake and Samson at Deeside Leisure Centre, and it was in December of 1982. So it wasn't quite my first gig, but it was, in my mind, it's my first gig. And I think it's more interesting. So this was in North Wales. It was at an ice rink. So they covered over the ice rink with rubber mats.
Right.
And you could even see the wires going along as well. You had to be careful you didn't trip up on the mats. But it was actually a fantastic gig. Nicky Moore was singing for Samson because Bruce had just left to go to Iron Maiden. But Whitesnake were in their prime then. It was the Saints and Sinners tour. So you had the bluesy guitars of Bernie Marsden and Mickey Moody. But I mean, David Coverdale was in his prime, and obviously you had John Lord as well playing with them. And just to hear his keyboards and the sound, it was so loud. And he was rocking the organs, pushing them backwards and forwards on the stage. It was amazing. I was quite far back, and I was quite young at the time. I mean, I was 15 years old, and I'm not very tall either. So I was sort of crooning my neck to see the show, but you could certainly hear it. It was really loud. And the other thing that I remember about it was there was a lot of fire that came up from the floor right in front of the stage. Well, I was right at the back, and you could feel the heat of the fire, because in those days there's no health and safety, of course. So it's just you just did whatever you want. So that was amazing, and it was a really cold night as well. I remember it was snowing when we were queuing up to go in, and I've still got the ticket on my board. And the tickets all sort of worn away because it all got wet that night with the snow. So parts of the ticket are missing. Right. But Coverdale's voice was amazing, and they played all the hits. And you got to remember, Whitesnake were one of the biggest rock acts in Britain at the time. I mean, "Fool for Your Loving," which was a single that had been out previously. It was a top 10 single. It was massive. So it was sold out. I was there with a friend of mine who been to a few shows with since, and I was with his sister as well, who was a big Whitesnake fan, and it was a really great night.
Very cool. You said Whitesnake in their prime, but I didn't hear you mention John Sykes.
No. Well, this is Whitesnake during the blues prime, and they were really cooking in that time, the early 80s.
That's fine. We've already had discussions about how you like the wrong era of Aerosmith as well. So we've gotten used to these types of things, Jeremy. No, that's awesome.
My older brothers saw that tour in Dublin, Whitesnake and Samson. Yeah, and I was still too young. I wasn't allowed to go, but there was a power cut during the concert, and that's my memory of it. We have photographs of it somewhere.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, anytime you get to see John Lord live, I mean, had to have been great, especially during that period, because, you know, as you're saying, Jeremy, the whole thing that he was known for like rocking the keyboards back and forth. It isn't like they do now, where you see some keyboard players do that, where it's your usual, like, just keyboard that we've become accustomed to over the last 30 years. No, John Lord was rocking a big Moog keyboard, which was, or Moog, excuse me, which was heavy as all hell. So if that thing fell over, you know, you were getting 3 or 4 people to pick that back up. It wasn't a one-person job. So, you know, it was part of the whole illusion that they were selling. So that was, you know, that's magical to see that. So that's awesome.
Yeah. And of course, David Coverdale was full of his phrases. You know, here's a song for you, and all that sort of stuff. You know, he's full of it. But it was just, yeah, what a concert. What really set me off to be a proper, you know, rock and metal fan. As I said, I did see a smaller gig just before that, but that didn't really sort of, you know, get my appetite going for the music. But seeing Whitesnake live did, and you know that we should always remember that those sort of moments, you know, can really drive you on to get into the music long term. And you know, we're still into it today, so it's great.
Yeah. Coverdale is from what part of England?
He's from Yorkshire. Yeah, he always makes a thing of having his brew, his Yorkshire tea, in front of him.
Okay, so can you do a Yorkshire accent?
Well, not as good, no, as some other accents. But the thing about David Coverdale is he hasn't really got a proper Yorkshire accent, which is strange. He's quite posh.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, he got rid of that.
Yeah.
Well, that here in Spain, that happens with a lot of the famous people as well, where depending on who they're interviewed by, they'll either have a neutral accent, or if they're from the South, which is a very heavy, a very thick accent. If they're being interviewed by, you know, a reporter from the South or from a Southern station from Seville or something like that, all of a sudden they'll turn that on. But when you usually hear them, you know, it's wiped clean to kind of be neutral. So I'm wondering if that's the case.
It's like you, Victor. You don't sound like you're from Jersey or Spain.
Well, there's a long story for that. I don't speak English or Spanish correctly, so you know, that's where you get that. But anyway, Jose just joined us in the chat. Jose sent me a message. He said that his first show was The Cure in 1986 at Madison Square Garden with his brother Bennett. Metal dentist Gabriel said that, and I think he might be pulling a Jeremy here and cheating, because he's saying that his first show was Kiss and Poison in 2004 on July 20th at the PNC Bank Art Center in Central Jersey there. And I have a feeling he's probably seen some other shows. But all right, so my first show, I had wanted to, my brother had gotten to see AC/DC, my friends had gotten to see Kiss, Iron Maiden. So I wasn't allowed to see any of these shows up to that point. So one of my cousins, one of my long list of cousins, says, "Oh, we're going to the Queens County Fair in New York." Like, "Oh, we're going to go see a concert." And I said, "Oh, okay, who's playing?" So the opening act was a guy named Noel. The second act was the Cover Girls. These are strict pop acts. And then the third band was the Gypsy Kings, who, depending on who you speak to, are from Spain or from France. If you speak to them, they say they're French. If you speak to people in Spain, they'll say that they're Spanish. Anyway, so my first show had absolutely nothing to do with rock or metal or anything like that. But my medical story, Brad, is that this cousin also became a dentist. And on the way home, he says, "Oh, do you want to stop by the university where I'm studying?" "Yeah, sure." "Well, let me show you the cadaver that we're working on."
I like that dentists are working on cadavers.
So we went there and he showed us, he brought us into a room. It was all full of tables that had each, team of students cadavers, and he proceeded to show us the one that he was working on, which they had done the Eddie treatment to and cut off the top part of the skull. And so
Really bad dentist.
I was gonna say they would remove your teeth from the inside.
I think I have a cavity. I can fix that.
Well, anyway, but let me just say that for a while there, it was difficult to eat certain things. And that smell of, formaldehyde or whatever that was always was stuck there. So when I've heard, people trying to take formaldehyde for not the purposes that it's used for, or to do other recreational things, I'm like, that smell kind of never goes away. You always, that's one of those things that are always stuck with you. So,
and that's why he should have said, "Don't drink and drive." That's it.
There you go. My first metal show was actually a Sacred Reich with Crowbar and with Souls at Zero. Souls at Zero used to be called Wrathchild AD. And then when grunge came around, they changed the name of the band, changed their sound to be more like a Pantera type band, like more of a groove metal band as opposed to a thrash metal band. They hated one another, so that band broke up shortly after that. But the drummer was Shannon Larkin, who's played with a million other bands like Ugly Kid Joe, and he's been the drummer in Godsmack for like 20 years now. Crowbar, who a lot of us know, the drummer for that was Craig. I forget his last name, starts with a B, but he ended up playing in Black Label. And then Sacred Reich was who I was sent there to see by their label at the time, Hollywood Records. I got to talk to Dave McLean, who's now back in the band, the drummer, Jason Rainey, who passed away a few years ago, and Phil Rind, who I got to interview 2 years ago. So that was my first experience of going to a rock or metal show and actually meeting a band at the same time. So it was kind of cool. Let's see.
Most people after a show go and drink in the parking lot or whatever. You go see a cadaver. That's sick. That was an amazing story.
That is metal.
That's metal. There you go. And that's from the person that told me, "Oh, you'll grow out of being into metal." That's just a passing phase. Much like the person that contacted me on Facebook that went to school with me like a few years back. Remember when you used to like Kiss? Yeah, that hasn't really changed.
Yesterday.
I used to. I still do.
Yeah. So next question I asked you guys was the best shows that you had attended. And since the order has now changed here, we'll go in kind of a reverse order here. We'll go with Steve first. What's the best show that you've seen?
Oh, I have a list of a good amount, but I think I'm gonna stick with metal. I'm gonna have to go with New York Steel.
Okay.
For me, because that was. I think it's. People here may know that I like Twisted Sister.
Mm-hmm.
So that was my first time getting to see the full band back together.
Right.
Because I'd never gotten to see them before that. And just the circumstance for the show and everything. So it was a really special thing for me.
Yeah. I was at that show as well. For those that don't know, that show was put on by Eddie Trunk and Mike Piazza, retired baseball player now. That was for the widows and children of the first responders of the 9/11 attack in New York. And this show was Sebastian Bach, Overkill, Ace Frehley, Anthrax, and Twisted Sister. Am I missing anyone? I think that was all. that played.
I
Twisted
think that was
Sister.
it.
Yeah, Twisted Sister has since released that on DVD after years of saying that it was never recorded. It was the first time that they had gotten back together again in front of a large audience. Ace Frehley was whacked out of his mind. He was recorded properly. I have a bootleg of that, but he's never wanted to release that because of how bad he looks. I mean, he's completely pale and skinny as hell.
Not to jump ahead, but that's actually my worst, the Ace Frehley part.
Okay.
Or worst concert.
From that specific show?
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. See, now that was my first time seeing Ace. So because of the song selection and stuff, I have fond memories of that. I will say, you know, my brother and me did witness 9/11 in person. We saw that second plane hit. We were there. So that show when Twisted Sister played The Price was a very emotional moment for me. Was one of those things where it was like, all right, we got to try to like move on from this. Anytime that I interview somebody who played at that show, and when I spoke to Charlie Belmore a few months back, I mentioned it to him as well that, you know, if I ever get to interview D again, I'll thank him for being in that show because of what that emotionally meant for me and what it meant to kind of move on from there. I've said it again, Blitz from Overkill, the guys from Anthrax that I've interviewed, I've talked to them about all of this. And Anthrax that night was a big deal because there was all this hoopla about not knowing whether they were going to perform as Anthrax or not. So they all came out with white jumpsuits that ended up spelling out, "We are not changing our name." That was also Rob Caggiano's first show with Anthrax. And I remember hearing him do the solo to Only, and I was like, no, he's butchering it. But yeah, there you go. The New York Steel DVD. I have that in the next room. All right. So anyway, Jeremy, your fondest show that you've seen?
Yeah, this was really difficult for me because I've seen so many shows. I mean, I've stood in front of Phil Lynott playing Thin Lizzy, and I've seen AC/DC, and I've seen Ozzy playing in Sabbath, and you know, all these shows are just fantastic. I've even seen Prince standing on his piano playing his guitar to Purple Rain, and that was an amazing moment. But it wasn't the best overall show that I'm going to tell you about. I drilled it down to two. One was Iron Maiden on the Final Frontier tour. And the reason is it was the first time I'd ever seen Maiden live. And I realized what an amazing live band they are. And it was also the only show at that point where I'd never got bored at any moment in any part of the show. And I'd wanted to see all the encores and not go home at the end of it. That's how good they are. So that was almost there, but in the end I picked Muse. I saw Muse at Download Festival, and they said in advance that they were going to put their guitars forward and they were going to play it a little bit heavier than they normally have on records because they knew the audience they were going to play to. And I thought, well, you know, I don't really know Muse and I don't really like them, but I'll watch them because they're the headline act that night. And I was absolutely blown away. I mean, you could have just touched me and I would have fallen over. They were so good. The sound was crystal clear. It must have been where I was standing in the particular part of the field, but they were just amazing. I mean, and as soon as I got home after the show, I said to my wife, I'm getting tickets and we'll go and see them in Manchester on the same tour. So I went on the same tour, and it was a totally different show. But again, it was also the best show that I've ever seen because it was indoors. It was in the round, and it was on the drones tour. So they had all these drones flying around the arena. There was loads of them all just flying around with lights on. I mean, it was unbelievable. I've never seen a stage show like it. And I've seen Kiss live, and obviously Kiss, you know, are incredible live. But I've never seen a band like Muse live. And those two shows on the same tour, and I'll never see a band like it again.
There you go. So I for a second there thought that you were going to say that Yannick Ayer's prancing won you over, but it ended up being that it was the drones from Muse that did it. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Anthony, your best or favorite show that you got to see?
Well, the best was, it was very easy to come up with this. It was just this perfect meeting. Like I got into hard, heavy rock around 81, and this band played Dublin in 82. I was too young, was not allowed to go until the next time they came, which was 10 years later. So 91, 10 years when you're that age is a long time.
Right.
So finally getting to see AC/DC live, the Razor's Edge tour, and about a month before the gig was due to happen, it was announced that myself and my friends' number one band at the time that we were obsessed with was going to support King's X.
Oh wow!
So it was just everything came together. King's X and AC/DC, and I met Doug and Jerry in Dublin the day before the gig, and I spent about half an hour chatting to them up down O'Connell Street in Dublin. Got to the show really early, like before the doors opened. Got in, and it was the first gig in Dublin actually that a pit was used in the venue.
Right.
Well, it's because somebody died at a Smashing Pumpkins concert about a year before. But anyway, so we got in. Next thing, it was a packed, sold-out concert in the Point Depot in Dublin. About 6,000 people, and we're in the front row with plenty of space because obviously they just introduced this pit, because we got the armbands, and so it was just amazing. Like we were right up the front, going crazy for King's X because we were all about King's X at the time, and they were at their peak. And then AC/DC came on, and I just remember standing watching them like, I can't believe this is actually happening,
Right.
So yeah, that was a very easy choice. But then after hearing Jeremy, he was mentioning things, I'm like, oh my god. The time I saw Prince playing Diamonds and Pearls tour, similar pit situation right at the front. It was amazing. Depeche Mode, one of the best gigs I've been at. Pantera opening for Megadeth, another amazing moment. So many good gigs.
Yeah, and the other interesting thing there, important thing to point out, last year I think it was, maybe it was the year before, Richie from Focus on Metal, we did a special for St. Patrick's Day about Irish bands. Excuse me. And one of the things that he pointed out was the fact how, a lot of bands play England, bands will go over to Cardiff, bands will go, to different places. They'll go to Glasgow, but they wouldn't go to Ireland. So it was a big deal for.
It's not so bad now, but back then it was a big deal. Yeah.
So, I mean, I just hearing your story and the buildup, AC/DC and all those years, 10 years is a big deal. A lot of people.
Huge.
Yeah. Like growing up, at least for us, in the New York area, you kind of take for granted that there are shows continuously, that you can see stuff all the time, but
that's the ticket right there.
Yeah.
So and awesome. Then I saw them again a few months later at Donington. So
awesome.
Those are awesome ticket stubs.
Yeah.
Oh,
they're really well preserved.
No, I'm just used to having like a little printout ticket that has the band's name, but no artwork or anything.
That's what the tickets used to be.
These
like.
are really cool.
There's that Prince gig there.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But like now they're shite. They're just printouts now.
Yeah.
You don't even get them. You get them on your phone. Whatever.
Yeah. Dan, your best show experience.
Yeah, that's a hard one to answer. Even as we're discussing, I still haven't made up my mind because I've seen Pantera headline a small club in Anaheim, and just after Cowboys. So I guess it would have to be Maiden on the Power Slave tour in San Bernardino. I think it was before or after Long Beach. I don't remember now.
Right.
But it was my first time seeing Maiden, and the venue is a small trash dump of a place to see with standing room only. And I was young and dropped off once again. But I think we were the lights would extend out over the crowd because they were so much that the lights were over our head as well too because of the venue. So I think I was 10 to 15 rows deep in that smash of people and being pushed around. And back in the day, look at some of those old videos, you see the crowds being pushed back and forth. That's what it was like. It was a survival of piss and beer and being pushed and butts to nuts and all that. But
Right.
what a great time to see Maiden for the first time, I guess, on that tour with Warrior opening up.
Wow.
I
That's,
would have
Love
loved
to
to
have seen them.
yeah, that's awesome. Again, another historic tour because we've all heard Live After Death was voted the #1 live album here when we did that a few months back, and I mean that's part of that mystical tour that was preserved in time on VHS, DVD, Blu-ray, and album. So we've all seen it and heard it a million times. It's part of the soundtrack of all of our lives. So yeah, that's awesome.
Exactly. I think it was after Long Beach, and then of course Brad. I was too young at that time. Parent dropped me off for that show. So yeah, my experience with Long Beach Arena. After that, the next Maiden tour, then I was constantly going to the Long Beach shows because Maiden would return to Long Beach, and as would other acts. Where Brad and I were probably at some of the same shows at this historic arena, and it's still there.
Yeah. And I actually left the motherland in early '81, so now we kind of I missed the Irvine and all that stuff. But
I mean, Metallica at Long Beach on the I don't remember which tour it was, but with the seats cushions flying back and forth, which is also discussed. I was there. I mean, there's so many best shows, but what a time.
It's hard. It's hard because different shows hit you for different reasons. So I mean, I've as you guys are talking, there are so many things coming up. I was supposed to see Pantera. We had passes to get into the show. It was Pantera Sacred Reich at the Roseland in New York. Turned out that they oversold the show. So we were, instead of receiving 4 tickets like we were supposed to get, they only had 2 waiting for us at the door. And there were 3 of us that went. So one of us, a guy that was coming with us, was like, "Oh no, I'll wait for you guys out here." We're like, "In New York?" Like, no, like we'll never see you again, So we're like, all right, if one of us can't make it in, then none of us can make it in. So we got back in the car and drove back home, unfortunately. But
He
then
won't survive the night. That's great. Sorry.
yeah, no, the Monday after was, the story was no one from any of the radio stations could get in because of the comp tickets. So yeah. Mike, your best show, because you've told us about a bunch of amazing shows over the years as well, seeing stuff at Red Rocks and just a lot of different stuff. So for you.
Yeah, I mean, growing up in Denver, that was like just an amazing experience because a lot of the bigger bands would do kind of a double stop. They'd come through Red Rocks in the summer and then come back through in the winter and play at McNichols Arena. So you catch kind of double whammies on a lot of it. Again, like everybody else said, this is a damn near impossible question. I mean, I saw Metallica with Cliff on the Ride the Lightning tour at Rainbow Music Hall in Denver. Amazing show. Maiden World Slavery Tour, '84. Twisted Sister was supposed to open, but Dee Schneider had dropped an amp on his foot, broke his foot, so couldn't perform. So Maiden played like a 3-hour set that night. It was just absolutely incredible. Rush on the R40 tour, we were actually saw that one in Portland, Oregon. Just an epic show, like the way they had the stage set up. But I think I just kept going around in my head after all of them. For me, it had to be seeing Sabotage on the Gutter Ballet tour at a small club in Denver called Bangles Nightclub. Band called Cold Sweat opened for them. It was Mark Ferrari's band after he left Steeler. And
after he left Keel.
Oh, Keel, yeah. And I saw the name Cold Sweat. This is, pre-internet days. No idea who they were, had never heard them before. Was walking through the club with a beer before the show, came around the corner and absolutely ran him over and just, knocked him to the ground. I was with a friend and I looked at him. I saw the hair. He had the distinctive stripe in his hair. And I laughed and I was like, hey, this guy thinks he's Mark Ferrari, haha. And then, 5 minutes later, he's up on stage. I was like, oh crap, that was Mark Ferrari that I just completely keel-hauled. But yeah, seeing Sabotage in their prime with Chris Oliva and John's voice was just absolutely on fire at that point in his career. Just so epic. And 200, 250 people tops in the show, so you're right up front catching everything. It was just absolutely mind-blowing.
Very cool. Yeah, Metal Dan is saying Mark Ferrari is one of the most likable humans. Your confusion with Steeler was that Ron Keel was the singer.
Ron, yeah.
Ferrari played in Keel. Little known fact, no, I'm sure a lot of people know. Cold Sweat was supposed to be called Ferrari, but the Ferrari Motor Company sued them to not use the name. So that's how they came upon Cold Sweat, because he was, the biggest known guy in the band at the time. The singer's been in a bunch of different known bands since then. I don't remember right now. I haven't personally followed them, so I wouldn't be able to name them, but that's awesome. Very envious that you've gotten to see shows at Red Rocks again after seeing the famous U2 show from the War tour, the Under a Blood Red Sky. Seeing that there, it's one of those things. Since I was a kid, I'd love to see a show at Red Rock because it's just such an iconic surrounding, natural red rocks around the the venue. So it's amazing.
And honestly, probably my greatest experience at Red Rocks was you remember the movie The Adventures of Fort Fairlane? And they filmed the opening scene there with the band Black Plague. I was an extra in the audience for that, so we spent the entire night trying to spread out and make it look full. And then the Black Plague band came out and played. They did all the stunts. They did the helicopters flying overhead, filming all the different angles. And then after they wrapped up filming, Queensryche came out and played a free show to as a thank you for everybody for hanging out all night. We were there 10, 12 hours. But would not have traded that for the world. That was an amazing experience.
And that soundtrack is what Queensryche considers to be their launching pad. The song Last Time in Paris, they consider, because that was the first thing that got on radio, they consider that to be the launching pad. Black Plague was Vince Neil and I think Phil
Susano, I think, was the bassist. And it was a very much an all-star band. They picked some top-notch guys. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Metal Dan is saying that he owns the Cold Sweat album. Awesome. Brad, okay, all kidding aside with seeing shows in closets, Burger Kings, and everything else, what do you consider the best show that you've seen?
It's a tough one to pick because I've seen so many great shows. I can pick any Saxon show, especially the first one at the Whiskey with Metallica warming up. The first Judas Priest show I saw at the Whiskey as well, which, not quite a Burger King. But yeah, great, just unbelievable experiences. And I actually had picked out a show just because it was one of the more just incredible shows I've ever been to, where the crowd wouldn't leave when the band stopped playing. But I shifted gears based on something Jeremy said, and the fact that it was like, I want to go see him again, and went and saw them again. So I changed to Queensryche during the Empire tour. We saw them. Yeah, my wife, not known to be into metal. I kind of trained her in that direction, and she became a huge Queensryche fan. And this is, well, anyway, we decided, and this is back when we were poor. We were starving students, didn't have much money, but we decided to go to Boise, Idaho, and see them there first, and then also see them in Salt Lake. And we saw them in Boise. It was great. It was it Wrathchild? No, what's God,
Warrior Soul.
Warrior Soul. Thank you. I get the names mixed up. Warrior Soul, greatest hair in rock and roll, other than Jake Ely.
Corey Clark.
Corey Clark. They were warming up, and the show in Boise was just incredible. But the show in Salt Lake was even more incredible because they played more songs, which I thought was kind of like, man, that's a bit of a ripoff to the smaller market, where you guys short them out. And maybe there was a logistical reason, or no, it was logistics, that they had to cut it short to get to Salt Lake to set up the next day. But when we saw them play in Salt Lake, they did a lot of the Empire album, but then they did all of Operation Mindcrime from beginning to end. And this is when that album was, they couldn't do it when the album came out because they were warm-up act and warming up for Metallica, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they did that, and it was just one of the most just amazing, almost spiritual experiences at a rock show. They were so good. Everything was just so perfect, and Jeff Tate was just incredible frontman. And you didn't want it to end. And after that show in Salt Lake, we both, Shelly and I, looked at each other. It was like, okay, where are they playing tomorrow night? Albuquerque. Okay, we're going to go to Albuquerque. Damn it! I mean, we've seen them twice. We're going to go see them a third time. It was that good. But then it was like, well, wait a second. Number one, you got to work. I got to go to school, and we have no money. Crap. So, and yeah, in Albuquerque wasn't exactly, you could drive it real fast. So that I'm going to put as my my favorite my favorite concert, just because it was so good. I would have gone to see them every show for the rest of the tour. It was that good, and it just kept you going every single song. They were so good back then. And even the next tour, the Here and the Now Frontier, which the album kind of just got pushed off. It wasn't a great album, let's say. But
Promised Land was next.
Oh yeah, no, we did see them on Promised Land. Promised Land really wasn't that great. Maybe it's because we flew 22 hours from Portugal, and then flew to Salt Lake, and then drove to Vegas. Got there without any sleep. Went to the show, and it was typo negative warming up for him down there. But that show was just really incredible. But it wasn't quite the same band wise. I mean, you could tell kind of things weren't as magical with the guys. And we weren't like, yeah, let's go see him again after that. They played, I think they played the whole Promised Land album too. And that album just was, it was just all right.
It's their, probably out of that streak, it's probably the weakest out of their first few albums.
Yeah.
Well, Here in the Now Frontier is the one where they took the big swerve.
Yeah. And I'm really glad I saw him on that Promised Land tour, because it was just a very unique thing. It was very, I don't know what the word is, because my brain's totally shot from not much sleep. But it was very theatrical. Let's put it that way.
Okay.
But when we saw him in Here and the Now Frontier, and having no idea that Chris DeGarmo was about to leave the band, but yet it was, again, the magic was there that night here, and we were like, where are they playing tomorrow? Let's go. And again, it was New Mexico, and we couldn't go. And I guess that tour got canceled because of the record company going under or something, so they didn't play very many shows after that. But so just the fact that I was willing to sell everything I had to go see them again on that tour, I'm going to say Queensryche.
Yeah. Anthony, you're saying you saw who? Queensryche and Warrior Soul, or Queensryche and Metallica?
Oh no, it was that Empire tour in
Oh, okay.
Dublin.
Okay.
It was, yeah, amazing. They played the whole of Operation Mindcrime, and it was just incredible.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder sometimes when I see something that hits me that hard. Is it just me? You kind of look around the arena. It's like, are other people feeling this too, or is it just me for some reason? Is this just like hitting me really hard? So, but again, when Shelly looked at me and like, yeah, I'm willing to do this. Like, let's do it. You know, no sleep, no money, let's go. And yeah, it wasn't just me. So
your name.
I can't remember who opened. Sorry, Victor.
No, I was just saying. Did your name become Peter Frampton all of a sudden there, Brad, when you're at the show? Do you feel like I do? This, one of his.
Yeah. There you go. I could tell you. I could put Peter Frampton on my other list though that we're going to talk about soon.
Okay. So sorry, Anthony, you were saying?
Oh, it's just saying I can't remember who opened that tour in Dublin.
Yeah,
I could find out. I have the ticket in there. Go on, keep going.
There you go.
I wish the heck I could have saved all my tickets because I would have got lost because after my parents left when I graduated high school, I mean, all my stuff just got thrown away basically. So
yeah,
life is I don't have much.
I just managed to keep them. Well, what year was that?
Ooh, 90,
91, 92.
91?
Yeah.
So it was probably before that. Let me see. Talk amongst yourselves. No more.
Yeah, Johan, what was your best show?
So, my best show?
Yes,
it was in the 26th of June, 1992 at Roskilde Festival. And the band was Nirvana. What do you say in English? Nirvana?
Oh, that's
Nirvana?
correct. Nirvana,
Yeah. For me, they were the biggest band on the planet that year. And for everyone else who was there. And on the same night, Denmark won the European Championships.
Right.
So the whole festival site was boiling. It was a magic night.
Right.
And when Nirvana played, when you melt together with the band, and you're around, I was 20, so, and no worries in the world. So that is still my best concerts. Absolutely amazing to see a band when they're on their absolute peak. Honorable mentions, I must say, is Rush, Snakes and Arrows in Stockholm. Okay. Iron Maiden, Somewhere on Tour or Somewhere in Time in Gothenburg, 86, and AC/DC, Blow Up Your Video Tour in 88 in Gothenburg as well. Yeah, thank you.
My brother saw AC/DC on that tour, but in New Jersey at the inside the arena at the Meadowlands, not in the parking lot. So let's see some of the comments that were sent in here. Best show. Jose, who's in the chat, says Depeche Mode in '88 with my brother Art and with both of his siblings. Orchestral Maneuvers in the Dark opened up, and they were just as good as Depeche Mode, he says. And the Metal Dentist says Iron Maiden 2005, Bring Me Ed, July 26, PNC Bank Arts Center. Started raining and the lawn seats became mudslide. It was an awesome night. Let's see here. And my brother mentioned that seeing Megadeth. We saw Megadeth and Motley Crue. It was the Maximum Rocks tour, which was in 2000. And the lineup of Megadeth was the two Daves, Al Pitrelli and Jimmy DeGrasso. That was the tour with Motley Crue where Samantha Maloney played drums for them because Tommy Lee was out of the band. And Anthrax was supposed to open up. I bought tickets for that because I really wanted to see Anthrax more than anyone else. And they ended up getting kicked off of the tour because they weren't making enough money before we actually got to see them. So so that is what my brother considers to be the best show that he saw. Let's see here. A few comments going back and forth in the private chat here. Metal Dan mentioning, I miss those times when we'd go to a show, get back home, and want to see it again. Mike Jones saying that Snakes and Arrows, I caught a t-shirt from Neil Peart. Wow. Definite prized possession, I would imagine. And Johan, wow, you can send it to me anytime.
Yeah. That is
all right.
my all-time favorite shirt.
So for me, this has been very difficult as well, hearing you guys, because I've seen Kiss is my all-time favorite band, but I've seen them on a really shitty tour, and I've seen them on an okay tour, so I couldn't consider that. I did get to see Iron Maiden on the Brave New World tour with Halford and Queensryche opening up, which was ridiculous outside of who the hell the guitarist was in Queensryche, who seemed like he was auditioning to be an extra in a Dokken video in '86 for some reason in the year 2000. Came out with leather chaps, puffed out hair. I don't know. I don't think it was Mike Stone. I think it was whoever they had after Mike Stone left and Parker joined the band. I forget. But I have to say, because similar to what Jeremy's saying, just the overall experience. And I've seen the band twice, and I had to figure out which one of the two shows was better. It's 9 Inch Nails for me. I got to see them with my brother once, and then in a kind of a small, like, not even an arena here in Spain, with like 3,000 people. They were going out on the the album where that Survivalism is on. So it wasn't even like a full like stage. Like when I saw them with my brother was at PNC, which is what my cousin Gabriel keeps referencing. So it was a full lighting setup. When I saw them later on here in Bilbao, Spain, they didn't have a lot of the same accoutrements, but there was enough to make the show magical. Like they had shop lights hanging over each member. So there was just like a like spotlight on each member that was just weak enough for you to see them, but there was so much smoke that it like clouded everything else out. Just the whole experience of the show, seeing a small setup like that, and a band being, you know, as big as they were and playing a small intimate show like that, to me was ridiculous. New York Steel was a tremendous show for me. You know, it was a very emotional show. Seeing a lot of different festival dates, seeing Metallica doing the entire Black album, the Ramones on their last tour, seeing Dio on his last solo tour, you know, so there's a bunch of things that come to mind, but just overall show, songs, and just experiences for me is 9 Inch Nails. So let's go with worst shows. Johan, for you, what's the worst show that you've seen?
Phil Anselmo, 2014 at Roskilde Festival.
Okay.
He was performing with some band, the Illegals, I think they were called. Terrible, absolutely terrible. He played some Pantera songs, some Down songs, and it was he was drunk and he was on drugs. Just terrible. I have seen Pantera many times in the 90s, and this was just embarrassing to see. We left during the concert. So Phil Anselmo.
Okay. Mike, what does the shirt read? The Neil Peart shirt?
It says, Neil Peart shot this shirt at me. I feel smarter already.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
That is why it is the greatest shirt, and then the front.
Wow. That is so awesome.
Wow.
I had heard that they were doing one shirt per show on that tour, so each
Oh, wow.
show got a different shirt, whatever they shot out of the cannon on the intermission.
That's beyond ridiculous. That's awesome. Brad, for you, what is the worst show that you've seen?
I think I've talked about this before. I'm gonna go with REO Speedwagon. It was Rainbow warming up, and I told you the story about my drummer, who is the biggest Deep Purple Rainbow fan in the world. And I wasn't that big of a fan, but I went with him because he's my guy. And I fell in love with Rainbow that night, even though they went on like an hour late. Just see it. But so that was the good part of it and it was all about Dio and Cozy Powell. Those two, I was sold on both of those guys. I wanted to be Cozy Powell, but I was just mystified by Ronnie James Dio. But then REO Speedwagon comes on, and it was so loud. I mean, it was annoying, and it was. It wasn't that they were bad. It's just couldn't stand it. I was like, I was trying, and I wanted to leave early, but my buddy had bought these tickets from a reseller and it paid a lot of money for them. And he says, "No, we're not leaving." He spent all the money. I didn't pay him for the ticket. So he says, I spent all this money on this ticket. We're not leaving. So I had to sit there through like what felt like 5 hours. I think it's just mostly Kevin Cronin's voice. Maybe it's an acquired taste. Maybe like, I don't know, eating a turd sandwich. But I still, every time I hear REO Speedwagon and he starts singing, I'm like, I can't listen to this. I just can't. And I got PTSD from that show. And it wasn't that the songs were bad. I think it was just him. So I'm just going to blame Kevin Cronin, his voice, the tone of it. I just can't take it. It was, And it was so unbelievably loud. I had no earplugs, and I actually fell asleep during part of it. And I woke up at this point where they're doing this thing where he pretends he's talking on the phone with a girl, I think. And the girl is the guitar player, playing the girl's part. And that felt like that went on for 15 minutes. I was like, this is the most ridiculous, awful thing I've ever heard in my life. So REO Speedwagon, sorry guys. I know, look, they're still doing big business, and people still love those songs. And God bless Kevin Cronin. But I won't ever be there for them. Sorry.
You can stop that feeling after all.
Yeah. But then again, I've never seen Machine Gun Kelly. If maybe that would change things.
But you got to see 38 Not So Special. And
they actually weren't that bad. They just weren't so special. They were just blah. It was like the whole night I kept thinking, why are there two drummers? They're not really doing anything different. I'm like, okay, somebody's got a picture of the singer naked with a goat.
That's what I was gonna say.
There's got to be some weird reason why there's two drummers in this band, because there was no musical reason for it. I would imagine when they recorded the albums, there's not two drum sets on each song on the album.
Yeah.
There's probably like, I don't know, you play, no, you play, no, you play. I don't. But yeah, it was just boring. That's all. Those guys, they weren't bad. They were just boring.
Okay.
But Rush was the headliner, and that made that show just awesome. So there you go.
There you go. Mike, your worst show.
My worst show, far and away, like the one that immediately came to mind when you asked was Kansas at Best Buy stage in Midtown Manhattan. It was one of the oddest shows I've ever been to, band combination wise. I went because King's X was second on the bill, and they absolutely scorched it. Like every time I've seen them, they've been amazing. The opening act was a band called That One Guy. I don't know if anybody's heard of this guy, but he sings, and he invented his own instrument. It's like a series of pipes. It's like a pheromone combination glockenspiel.
It's a vacuum cleaner tube, and
what the hell it is. Yeah, it is just the most bizarre thing on the planet. So you start that, you go to King's X, who kicks ass, and then Kansas comes out on stage. You're on a high from King's X, and everything was great. And you know, the band was on fire. Doug was sounding incredible. And they came out in this tiny little arena in a basement in Midtown. And they acted like they were playing the US Festival in front of 100,000 people.
Right.
And it just came off as pathetic. It was just sad. And the sound was off, and the singer sounded like crap, and like everything was just bad about it. And I made it 3 songs and walked out. I just couldn't take it anymore. And I never have walked out of a show before.
Wow.
And that was like the one time. I'm probably, you know, in my lifetime been to close to 1,000 shows, if not more. And this is the only one I've ever left.
Wow. That's saying something then, you know?
Yeah.
He well, the singer definitely had dust on his voice instead of dust in the wind there, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Was that the original singer? Why can't I think of his name?
Yeah, I think it was pretty much the original lineup, other than maybe I think they replaced a bass player or one of the rhythm guitarists along the way somewhere. But
yeah, there's somebody who died a few years back that was in the band, but yeah, I think it's more or less it's along the lines of the original people. Jeremy, your worst concert going experience?
Yeah, this one was really easy. In 2007, I went to Manchester Apollo to watch the Scorpions. And before you all fall over and say the Scorpions never play a bad gig, you're right, because the Scorpions were fantastic that night, as they always are. But they had a support act on that were absolutely terrible. And before I tell you who was terrible supporting them, I'll tell you who was in the band. It was Yari Tiura on vocals. There was Bodo Schoff, Frank Rumler, and Wayne Finley. They were all fine. They could play.
Oh, yeah, I know who
they
it
could
is.
play. They were playing really well. And they were really pissed off because they had this guy on guitar who we all know is an absolute hero of ours, who was pissed out of his head and couldn't play. And I'll just read to you, and the guy is obviously Michael Shanker. And I'll just read to you some of the comments that were in an article that I read today about that concert. Erratic solos, largely inaudible, tuneless and messy. And I looked at a friend of mine. I was standing next to him, and we looked at each other, and our mouths were open. We were like, "What the hell is going on?" It was unbelievable. It was very sad, very, very sad to see him, because I've seen him several times since, and he's been absolutely perfect. As we all know, Shanker is an absolute guitar god, but that night he was just absolutely terrible. But the worst thing about it was after his part of the show had finished and the Scorpions were on stage, he came out, he popped his head through the back of the curtain, and he said something to Rudolph, and he was staggering and still looked pissed, and they tried to push him back behind the curtain. Very embarrassing. Very embarrassing. So that was
at the time, I remember.
Yeah. So that was the worst gig I've ever seen, and that's probably the only bad gig that I've really seen, to be honest.
Wow, that's cool. Again, another landmark situation that became infamous, and you got to witness it. So, Anthony, your worst show?
Well, like Mike, I've been to a lot of things, and one of the only gigs I've actually walked out on. I'm not sure how relevant it would be to this bunch of people, but it's an American band called Mercury Rev.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know if anyone knows them. They were a kind of a psych band to begin with, and they were really interesting. And then they brought out Deserters songs, and they got huge, and they became really annoying. And I went to see them, and we just couldn't handle it, just left. But in terms of, metal gigs, there's a few disappointing ones, but I gotta say Megadeth, I think it was the second time I saw them. It was in 91. It was Countdown to Extinction, I think was the tour.
Okay.
And I remember watching it. It was big, like a huge gig. And I remember it just looked so rehearsed and soulless. Like, Dave would take one step right, do a solo, and he'd have a spotlight ready. It was very, very professional and very rehearsed, but it was really boring. So yeah, that's probably the most relevant one.
Okay.
But
That's interesting though, because that's actually been one of my gripes. Megadeth is one of the bands I've seen the most over the years, and the last few times that I've seen them, where Dave comes out in the white button-down shirt and the black pants, thinking the guy looks like a waiter to begin with, and then the shows have been hit or miss. They've either been great or really boring, where it's like you're saying, it's very rehearsed, it's very calculated, and then it feels like there's no
slick. Yeah, and like I'd seen them before on the So Far So Good tour. It was brilliantly chaotic, and it was amazing. And I've seen them since that as well, and they weren't as bad as they were that night. But I don't know, it was just boring.
Yeah. Jeremy's saying he saw them twice, once great and others so. The time I saw them with my brother, they were great. That was the first time I saw them too, and it was one of these things where they were just coming off of Risk, which is probably the low point in their catalog, but they went out to prove a point, and they went out and played their asses off, and that's probably the best show that I've seen with them. And since then, I've seen them a bunch of times. I saw them with Priest, and they seem to be like one of these. Saxon and Megadeth seem to be like the obligatory band at all the festivals that I've been to, where they're just there. And it's the hit or miss. It's been great, or it's been really boring, where it's like, oh, okay, kind of like nothing,
Actually, now that I think of it, that was Rust in Peace tour, I think.
Okay.
I saw them again a few years later, and Pantera opened, and I've never felt so sorry for a band ever to have to follow Pantera. God, they were just unbelievable. Again, a big gig, and I just felt so sorry for Megadeth coming out after that.
Yeah. Dan is saying we are surprised when we get a good Dave show. So, Dan, you're up next. What, in your opinion, is the worst show that you've seen?
Well, it's all open to interpretation and opinion, obviously. And I had to think about this one for a while, because I've been to many Man-O-War shows, and I think Man-O-War is always great. Somebody else could go and think they suck, so screw them. So putting a lot of thought into that, I wrote down something. And I'm a Dweezil Zappa fan. I've seen Zappa play Zappa. I was absolutely bored and walked out after a while, but that's not the one. I'm going to pick Filter opening up for Pantera.
Okay.
And it was in San Bernardino, because they kept Filter, they sucked to begin with, but they kept showing that video for Hey Man, Nice Shot. And they're doing the visual screen of the guy of the event getting shot in the head over and over. And I had to turn around and stop watching, because I was getting grossed out, probably like looking at a cadaver. That just wasn't for me. Yeah. Otherwise, I would give it to Johan with Phil, because I saw Phil Anselmo on the Ozfest, and it was after he split from Pantera. Dime was still alive, and we were pissed at Phil, and he was effed up, and we were flipping him off. He was flipping us off. He hated us. We hated him. So I'll give it to Johan now. That's even better than the Filter is the worst. Damn, we were angry. Oh, if I could have walked out, I don't remember who was on afterwards. That was probably somebody great at Ozfest. But damn, we were pissed. And yes, we blame Phil for Dime's death, in a way. Bring it over.
There you go. Johan is saying that he saw Megadeth on that tour. Pantera was opening, and they were fantastic. So there you go. Filter, a band that I really have enjoyed over the years. I like pretty much every album they've put out until I got stiffed on that last one. So there you go.
Check this
All
out. Pantera signed.
That's cool. My brother is checking out, so hope you have a great rest of your night as well.
Night, Art.
So there you go. Steve, worst show. You kind of gave us a hint before.
I did. I can pick something else, though. I have another one.
No, that's cool.
Because I have a list. I took after Brad and I started writing stuff down.
So go ahead.
See?
Mention.
You inspired me, Brad.
You needed this.
See?
So,
With his REO Speedwagon reference, you have to say he's your inspiration.
oh, he is.
No, that would be Chicago, isn't it?
Oh, that's Chicago. All right, another bit. I would put both.
I'll
What's
have to tell the penis of terror story another time. So just remember that. Put that in your-
All right. We'll add that to the list of Brad stories that we will be hearing in the future. Coming attractions. Go ahead, Steve. Sorry.
That's okay. So I would still
no
stick
pun
with
intended.
Ace Frehley at the New York Steel.
Okay.
Part of it, I won't lie, was because I forgot that he was on the show.
Okay.
So after, I think it was Anthrax, I think they were third, right? I think Sebastian Overkill.
Sebastian Overkill, Ace, Anthrax, and then Twisted Sister.
No, Ace was second to last.
Okay, so then it was Ace after Anthrax.
Yeah, so anyway, I forgot about Ace. So Anthrax done. I'm like, all right, it's time for Sister. I was very
Okay.
excited. And then Ace comes out, and I'm like, shit. So I was already not happy. But then he was just horrible. Like, he just kept screwing around with his amp, and it wasn't helping.
Right.
Just sloppy beyond belief. At least for me, I was like, okay, please stop. And like every song kind of ended like it was the last song of the set. You know, like big, like, all right, we'll like, all right, we'll finish this year. We're ending, and it was just into a next song, and so it was probably 45 minutes to an hour of that. And I just wanted to see Twisted Sister. So the rest of the show had been so good that this really stuck out as a sore thumb for me. So after that, and then Twisted Sister came on, and life was good again.
Blasphemy, I say. No.
But
you didn't enjoy the 10-minute melody where he combined it was Ozone, Strange Ways. He did two other, I don't remember right now. But again, Ace is the reason why I became a music nerd. It was the first time seeing Ace. So for me, it was that night he couldn't do any wrong, So it was one of those.
I understand.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've told you that I'm a casual Kiss fan at best.
Yeah.
So, it wasn't something like, oh, I mean, no disrespect to him, but it wasn't like, oh, Ace Frehley's going to do this. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah.
So the whole night was for Twisted Sister, but I love Overkill too. And like Sebastian Bach, I like Anthrax. So, it was a pretty solid show overall. And then just that didn't do it for me. And if I can just, I had alluded to that one earlier, throw out another horrible concert, and that was Maiden at the Merry Mayhem tour.
Okay.
And they were god awful. I'm not a big fan of them to begin with, like recorded, just not my thing.
Right.
But that show, it just sounded like it was literally just noise. Like you couldn't discern any certain instrument.
Right.
It was just a wall of like static, basically. And so that was up there for horrible concerts too, or horrible moments. Because the Merry Mayhem tour was really cool.
Steve making the point to shit on all these bands that I like tonight. That's fine. Ain't no problem.
I'm sorry.
Hey, you like what you like, and you know it is what it is. Hey, we're honestly talking about what we feel was the worst thing that we've seen. So,
Have you ever seen them live?
on TV, I have.
Okay.
Nice.
Were they good?
I've always enjoyed them, so I'm biased.
Okay. Okay. Fair enough. Their stuff never did it for me, and
Yeah,
live it was just noise.
totally
And
understand.
I was a lot younger then, so it wasn't old man talking.
Oh, wasn't get off of my lawn, Steve. Okay.
That's just noise.
Jeremy is saying he saw Ace at Download and he was great. And then Johan is saying first time he played Sweden Rock as well. So I guess he was noisy at Sweden Rock as well. What you're saying, Johan?
Or good.
Or was he good?
Oh, really good the first time.
Okay. See, now
Fantastic.
I got to see Ace at the Viper Room on my honeymoon. I saw on Twitter that he was playing at the Viper Room and it was $9 per ticket. And I remember my wife coming home and saying, "Oh, we're going to see Ace Frehley on our honeymoon." And she was like, "How much did you spend?" I'm like, $9 per ticket. All right, we'll see him. And it was just 200 people in the Viper Room. To the left of us was Slash and George Lopez, the comedian. And then Slash came up and played Colgin with him at the end of the night. So it was really awesome. But hey, everything is open to interpretation.
In Ace's defense, I have seen him like video footage. I've never seen him live again, but I have seen, John Astronomy will put up stuff from tour and stuff, and he sounds very good.
Yeah.
So just that night for me was for me. So
I get it.
That's all.
There are a few things that I would consider that were in the running. Jeremy mentioned Michael Shanker. Always wanted to see Michael Shanker. He was at a festival, but it was during this period where every tour he had a different lineup. And that tour had Wayne Finley, had Chris Glenn on bass, had Gary Barden back on vocals, and Carmine Appice was on the tour before this. I'm like, oh, I finally get to see Carmine live. I've met him in person, but I've never seen him live. But like 2 days before it was announced that Chris Glenn, who had been playing in AC/DC when Anthony saw them, was going to be on drums. And Chris Glenn is known for being Chris Slade. Jesus, I mixed the bass player and drummer up there. I'm sorry. Chris Slade.
I'll do that when we're tired and old.
Yeah. Anyway, so he was going to be playing, and those first few Shanker albums with Simon Phillips and especially Cozy Powell on drums was what I was listening to before we did the show tonight. And so I have these fills ingrained in my head on how to play them. And then
Not a fan of Chris Slade's drumming.
Oh my God. It was similar to seeing Kiss with Peter Criss. It was one of these things where I felt my heart shatter as I was listening to these songs, because they're songs that I'd played since I was a kid. And no, they're being played completely wrong. The fill doesn't go there, or, that was this, it was that. It was incredible how devastating it was. I had to walk away from Shanker after 3 songs because I don't know what Chris Slade was playing, and it just ruined the entire experience. But to top that off, Marilyn Manson headlining the last Cobetasonic Festival that was here in Bilbao, Spain. I've wanted to see Manson for I don't know how many years. I'm a huge fan of Manson's. And he decided that for the encore, he was coming out with a sparkle blue Telecaster, and no one else from the band was coming out. It was him and a Telecaster for 20 minutes playing The Beautiful and Sweet Dreams. It was the worst thing I've ever witnessed live. It was horrible. We had to walk away. We had to walk away and wait for it was Suicidal Tendencies was playing last on the night. And it was just terrible. It's one of these things where you're waiting for a band forever to see them live, and you finally see them, and they're just absolute shit. The rest of his band was great, throughout the performance, but his vocals sucked, and then that just took the cake. So for me, it's Manson was the worst show I saw because of that. Let's see. Jose mentioned to me that not a bad show, but it was one I went to because someone gave me tickets. It was Bryan Adams, 1998 at Riverfront. It wasn't a bad show. I just was not a huge fan. So, I mean, that's understandable. If you're going just to check something out, if it just doesn't if it just doesn't speak to you, it doesn't. Gabriel said, Kiss in 2008. Just tired of the same old set list and the show after seeing them 6 times. So, I mean, that's totally understandable as well. Jeremy is saying Manson played Download and was terrible. Apparently, I was watching the main stage at the time, missed it. I think it was the same tour, because a lot of the Download or the artist that played Download would end up playing this festival, which was normally just a few days later. So it's quite possible it was on the same tour. I'm mixing it up with the Soundgarden album, but anyway, it doesn't matter. It was horrible either way. So to wrap things up, the last question that I have is a band that you would have loved to see live when they were around, or a band that you'd still like to see live that are still around that you haven't been able to see. Steve, who fits that category for you?
For a band that I have not seen and that I can see, hopefully it would be Weird Al. I've never seen him, and I'd love to.
Okay.
And I would love to see Fury.
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to be seeing them anytime soon, unfortunately.
Okay.
And I also haven't seen Dolly Rots live yet.
Okay. So
as far as something that I can't see anymore, it would be Ozzy with Randy.
Okay.
And Metallica with Cliff.
All right. Awesome.
And then I would probably throw in Stevie Ray Vaughan and Jimi Hendrix too.
There you go.
As solo artists, I guess.
It's not a bad festival bill there.
No, that would be a pretty cool festival to see all of them.
There you go. Jeremy, how about you?
Yeah, the ones that I could see that I've not seen is Accept and Udo. Except I'm actually going to probably see next month, as I mentioned, down south. So it'd just be Udo. The ones that I've not seen, which I can't now see, I've never seen Rush or Triumph. I'd have liked to have seen them. Okay. And obviously Van Halen, I would have liked to see them. And I would have liked to have seen Queen in their prime as well, because I had a friend of mine who actually went to see them in the 80s at Wembley, and they were amazing. Led Zeppelin is another, and just 2 others, the Beatles, because I was too young really to see them. And as I'm a real blues fan, I've seen all the main blues acts. I've seen Buddy Guy, I've seen B.B. King, John Lee Hooker, Albert Collins, you name it. I've seen them all live, but I've never seen Jimi Hendrix play, and I would die to see him play live. I mean, that'd be amazing.
Unfortunately, that's what you're going to have to do to see him play live at this point. But, let's hold up on that. Mike is saying Stevie Ray at Red Rocks was epic. So you got to see him at Red Rocks.
I did. Yes. Another one. Now that we're talking about it, greatest show ever, probably.
Yeah.
Definitely in the running there. Just, the whole mood. Stevie Ray, I mean, what can you say about the guy? He's just a master. Gone too soon.
Absolutely. Brad is saying Accept is really good, as is Udo. So there you go. Anthony, for you, what would your response be?
Well, this is the hardest question of all the ones so far. I've seen, I think, almost everyone that I would, kind of want to see at the moment. But I suppose, put in the spot, I would say probably, just have seen Van Halen in their prime would have been amazing. I only saw Eddie play once, and that was at a live radio show thing in Boston, and it was just Eddie and Gary Sharon up on the stage. So that's as close as I got to seeing Van Halen.
Yeah.
So I'd say them. I would have said Motley Crue, but I did see Motley Crue. And recently, the only band that I really kind of ached to see were Ghost, because they kept playing everywhere except Ireland. And I think I missed them at the peak, which would have been really amazing to see them. But I finally saw them, and they supported Metallica here in a massive outdoor show. And then I saw them again about 6 months later at an indoor show. So I think I'm kind of good, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's cool. I was lucky enough to see them on their first tour, 3 p.m. middle of the day, like 40 some odd degrees. Yeah, it was ridiculous. They were all in the clergy outfits, and it was beyond hot. It was a hot summer day in Madrid, so it's ridiculous. Mike Jones is saying Van Halen 1984 was great. And
I bet.
Yeah. And Jeremy is saying saw Drum Roller Coaster, final Motley Crue tour, amazing. Final Motley Crue tour up until now, right? So in a few weeks that's changing because they're going back out on tour.
You get Fat Vince.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah,
one band I didn't think I'd ever see, and I just saw them in a really bizarre circumstances. Was Rat. They played the only time they've ever played here when they played in Belfast. And I found out about it on the day of it, so I just drove to Belfast, watched the gig, and drove home again. And they were really good.
Oh wow! What lineup was it?
Well, it was Warren. Warren was playing guitar. I can't remember who was on the other guitar, and then everyone else was legit members,
Okay, so it was maybe Carlos from Quiet Riot on the other guitar?
Could have been, yeah. But it was so good. Like Stephen Pearcy, he's a bit of a dick, but he's got great charisma on stage,
Oh yeah, I can attest to that personally.
I know you can,
yeah. With 4 or 5 calls to the bastard. So yeah.
My favorite Stephen Pearcy moment was in San Antonio, Texas, when he got out there. It was his solo band, and he goes, "Hey, El Paso!" And I thought they were gonna kill him. I was serious. That was the end of the show for him.
Yeah, well, pretty hilarious. I got Josh Todd from Buck Cherry saying, Mexico, do you want to hear Crazy Bitch in Spain? And I was like, you flew across the ocean. It isn't like you just got in a plane in LA and just took a 1-hour flight. So that's a 9-hour flight.
It's on Stephen Pearcy's card. He's a bit of a dick.
Yeah, there you go.
So he puts in the free lunches.
Yeah. Dan, how about for you? Band that you haven't seen that's still around, one that you wish you could have been able to see?
Gone, but I wish I could have seen it. I had the opportunity. I didn't do it. Was Queen with Freddie Mercury. But at least I did later see Queen with Lambert, and I enjoyed the show in Vegas. So Mark can stick it up his. I liked it just fine. And Mark poops on it. I like Queen with so it was a good show. And the band that's still around that I want to see and I keep talking about is from Sweden, is DAD. I've blown it. They've been here. I messed up. So I'm after DAD. Do I need to go to Sweden? I just might have to.
Denmark. Go to Denmark. Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
It's easier. Yeah.
Okay, we'll do.
They're
Both
from-
sounds great to be at.
Denmark doesn't have Johan though.
But maybe
Yeah.
he'll have to see DAD at Sweden Rock.
I want to see a headline show. I want to see them in their own thing. But yeah,
Okay.
Sweden Rock. I've heard the discussion about the festivals. They are a pain in the ass, so I'm going to pass on that. So no.
Okay. Mike, you proclaimed earlier that you've seen over 1,000 shows. So
Yes.
is there even anyone that you haven't seen that you'd like to see, or anyone that you missed out on? And we're not talking about Bach or Beethoven or stuff like that.
Right. The original lineup of Led Zeppelin, for sure, for
Okay.
me would have been the thing to see. I mean, I've seen Plant solo, I've seen Coverdale Page, so I've seen elements of the band, but never the whole
Right.
band. I think that would have just been incredible to see. Of the newer bands, I'm just absolutely enthralled with the Quill. I would love to see them play live, see how they pull it off. They've got a great sound, and
Yeah.
hopefully they'll come out on tour, maybe release a new album. Who knows? But those guys, I would definitely love to see.
So were you aware of the Quill before I posted them on Patreon?
I was not. No, you turned them on to me, and I've gone out and bought every single one of their albums now. So they hooked me.
See, so when I'm here kicking myself out of other people getting more likes or more responses or stuff like that, hearing stuff like that, is why I love to do what I love to do. Turning people on to cool bands and having these great discussions like we're having with you guys makes it all worthwhile to me. So.
Like I've said, this is the record store conversation that you used to have when you're flipping through the albums in the heavy metal section, and you look over at the guy in the obituary shirt and go, "So what are you looking up?" This is it.
Awesome. Well, love it. Brad, for you, was there any band that you miss seeing playing the Troubadour or the Whiskey or anything like that?
Yeah, Johnny Winter. I had tickets to see him twice, and one of somebody anyway, the long story, somebody stole my ticket, and I couldn't get in. I was at the Swing Auditorium, and yeah, Dan, you know what I'm talking about. And yeah, that place, it's like a tuna can. The other time was at Anaheim Stadium, and the guy that was driving got us late to the show right after they stopped playing. I was like, "Are you kidding me?" So I got screwed twice on seeing Johnny Winter. Band I would like to see, and I plan on I'll come to the UK to see him, and that's Thunder, because I don't think they're ever going to play here, and I just love them, and I think they're like one of the best live bands out there right now from what I've seen. I don't know how many Thunder DVDs I own, but I want to be there. I want to have that experience of being there. But also, there's so many Swedish bands I want to see that I'm definitely going to Sweden, because I think that's the only place I'm going to see them other than the Monsters of Rock cruise. It sounds like they've got a Swedish wing on that ship. But I got to say, Dan kind of talked me out of going on that cruise. I mean, it'd probably be great. Who knows? I might still do it just to be able to see all these bands that can't afford to get into the U.S. because it's so stupid expensive to get here. And they'd be like playing in front of 20 people because nobody's ever heard of them. Yeah, so there you go. So I am coming to Johan, Sweden Fest next year, not this year because I'm still working. Next year I definitely won't have a job, but I'm going to have lots of money. I'm coming to Sweden next year. So let me know when you're buying tickets, and I'll buy one from you.
Yeah. You're most welcome.
Thank you.
Mike Jones is saying, when I had hair, I was mistaken for Johnny Winter. Someone asked me for an autograph. There you go.
I hope you look healthier than he did.
No, I was back in my less robust days.
Back
shall
in
we
your
say.
heroin days.
Yeah.
Yeah, Johnny. Oh, guy, I love Johnny Winter. It kills me that I didn't get to see him.
I was mistaken for Billy Corgan once and for Johnny Depp another time. Although the latter time was a waitress at a strip bar working for tips. And I flat out told her, I said, listen, honey, I know you're working to get a tip out of me. I go, because once these lights go on, the last thing you're going to be thinking of is Johnny Depp. All right.
There's no Johnny Depp, buddy.
I think she wanted more than a tip there, Victor.
Jesus Christ. Yeah. Where's
That's not Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Although he's not looking too good right now on the news. He's getting reamed, but go on.
He'll be okay. He's got a way of getting out of this kind of stuff, man.
Yeah. There's a different set of rules for people that are not present here speaking tonight that other people get to adhere to. So
yeah, he'll be.
Anyway, Johan, any band that you haven't seen that's still around that you'd like to see, and any band that that you wish you could have seen?
Yes. I would like to see Arch Enemy again. I have seen them, but I really want to see them again. And the band Thunder. I just fell in love with that band this week. Wow, what a band.
Okay, so it sounds like Johan and me are going to meet up with Jeremy in England somewhere and see next.
That'll be good.
Yeah, and the Swedish band Crazy Licks. That's not impossible at all. Yeah. And the band that I wish I could have seen is Thin Lizzy, and I would like to have seen them on the Thunder and Lightning tour.
Well, with John Sykes, there you go.
I saw that there.
Yeah.
Anthony,
Anthony, did you get to see Thin Lizzy?
I didn't see Thin Lizzy. I wasn't allowed to go to that gig where on the last tour in Dublin. All my brothers went. Well, my older brothers went, but I did see Grand Slam, which was Phil's band. After that was my second concert was Grand Slam, so I'm delighted to have seen Phil in person.
Still another unique thing that only a few people can claim to have seen Grand Slam. They never released anything, so you got to see, there are bootlegs floating around on YouTube and whatnot, but it's obviously not the same as a well-produced album.
Yeah, and it was it was the main Dublin venue at the time. It was about 1,200 people. So it was the size of the place.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's where everybody played. So a lot of these bands, you got to see them in a small venue, a relatively small venue.
Yeah. Yeah. Jeremy's saying he saw that tour standing right in front of Phil. And Johan is saying that is really great. Love that record and the set list on that tour. For me.
Sorry.
No. Go ahead.
I'm just. Johan reminds me that one band I'm delighted that I did get to see, and I wouldn't be the biggest fan of, is Rush. And their only time they've ever played Dublin was on that. Was it the 40 tour where they played Moving Pictures and 2112? Like perfect gig for me as a sort of a casual fan. Let's say I know those two albums very well.
Right.
But the gig was so enjoyable. Like for years afterwards, I'd just be sitting at home going, I wish I was still at that gig. It was such fun. It sounded great. They were amazing. They had a great vibe, I know. So Rush, delighted to have seen them.
That is awesome. For me, you guys have brought up a lot of great bands. Bands that I would have loved to have seen. I mean, I was close to seeing Pantera, didn't get to see them. Would love to see Van Halen or even David Lee Roth's solo band that had, Steve Vai, Greg Bissonette, and Billy Sheehan on bass. That Eat 'Em and Smile album.
Yeah.
Like the only thing that compares to those early Van Halen albums, if we're gonna be staying within that kind of family tree. So there's that. Ozzy with Randy or with Jake would have been something I would have loved. Dio with Sabbath. I didn't get to see that. I got to see Dio on his own. But I didn't get to see, that. So there's a few bands that I haven't seen that I would that I want to see that are still around. They're not rock or metal bands because I've gotten to see most of the rock or metal bands that I want to see, or I should say they aren't really metal bands or heavy metal bands. It's Depeche Mode and it's U2 are the two bands that I love to see that I've always wanted to see and haven't been able to see them. I had tickets for Depeche Mode, and 2 days previous, someone poisoned our dog, and we weren't in the emotional state to go to see the show. So that's the only time that I've ever, come close to seeing that. And unfortunately, being where I am in Spain, usually you have to travel 7 hours to see one of these bands. So it isn't like you can pick up and say, all right, I'll see them, tomorrow because they're, an hour away. When the Police played an hour away, yeah, I went to see them. When, Kiss played an hour away or Dio or stuff like that, I've gotten to see these bands because of that. So, let's see. Mike Jones is saying Dio was Sabbath, second row, and I got a guitar pick from Geezer, even though he doesn't use a pick. Well, he's still got his stage props, I guess, there to...
Absolutely. Tossing them out.
Yeah.
I guess he could throw out his fingers, but I mean, that wouldn't last very long.
No, that's Iomi. That's the...
Too soon, Victor.
He did on Children of the Grave. Well, I guess those... Children of the Grave. Okay. No, I was going to say Heaven and Hell because... all that stuff was written by Jeff Nichols. Most of it was done with pick, if I'm not mistaken. So, let's see. Jeremy, one of the loudest bands I heard was Heaven and Hell. So there you go. Real quickly, my brother threw out a question. If anyone wants to answer this, he asked, what do we not remember from one of these shows that your friend had to tell you about later? Has anyone had a moment like that where you forget something? Steve, tonight you saying that Ace was messing around with his amps the whole time. I don't remember that at all. So it goes to show how different people interpret things.
Mandela effect.
There you go. Yeah. Anyone else have that where they don't remember something or some kind of oddity from a show that sticks out to them that maybe didn't come up? Nothing. Okay, no problem.
Sorry,
So
we're all too sober when we go to the shows.
No, it's late. Johan is about to tap out on us here.
Good night,
Good night, everybody. Good night. I have to be up early tomorrow. So
See you,
Hey,
Johan.
Johan.
yeah. See you.
Thanks,
Bye
Johan,
bye.
for
Take
being
care.
here. All right, take it easy. Brad, you were
We're talking
saying?
about weird concert experiences. I saw Anthrax walk off stage after about 3 songs
Okay.
in Dublin. That was a memorable one. And then that, I mentioned it before, but that Smashing Pumpkins gig where the young girl died, I was at that, and that was a cut short as well. Sort of memorable events, I suppose.
I've seen Anthrax with the opposite happen. I drove like 2.5 hours to see them. They were playing at a gig that usually would take about an hour and something, but it was a Sunday show, and there was a lot of traffic because of people going back to the city per se. And I get there, and this was the reunion tour with Joey and with Dan Spitz. They had a 15-minute intro video and song. They did a 45-minute headline show. And the next day I was pissed because I drove so far to get there. You know, I wanted the first time I was going to see Joey, and I mentioned it on their forum. And then Scott Ian responded to me, and he was like, dude, you know, we were, you know, our sound guy got sick and we were pissed and there was no AC at the show. And I said, the whole fucking show, you're looking at Charlie like, are we done yet type of a deal? You know, it sucked. And I said, you know, it sucks that people pay hard-earned money. Yeah. Okay. We all have bad days. I get it. But you're playing this show in almost the middle of nowhere where you know everyone drove to get there. And that's your response. But the silver lining to this, and I told this story to Blitz from Overkill, because when I saw Overkill, they played at a festival here. Well, it was it was their own festival. But anyway, he was the only one who didn't attempt to speak in Spanish that night. And he said, well, the reason I don't do that is because my mother-in-law is Dutch, and I once tried to speak Dutch to her and said something completely wrong. Instead of saying strawberries, I said ass, is what he told me. I said, okay, well, you'll appreciate this, because when Scott Ian came out, he had this whole spiel where he was trying to prove that he couldn't speak Spanish. But at the end of the statement was my Spanish is bad, but my metal is very strong. Well, one of the things that he said was, me gusta, he said, me gusta polla. Okay. In English, or in everywhere else, pollo with an O at the end is chicken in Spanish. But in Spain, if you add an A, if it's polla instead of pollo, it means penis. So on stage, and nothing wrong if that's what his inclinations are, but I don't think that's what he meant to say on stage. So I told Blitz from Overkill this, and he was laughing hysterically for I don't know how many minutes, and he kept telling everyone who kept coming back, the road crew, members of the band, he's like, you got to hear this. So I kept telling the story to the different people that came out. So there you go. So again, that's my probably biggest anomaly like that, where there was something wacky like that, where you said Anthrax walked off. Love the band. One of my top 5 favorite bands, but there have been several incidents where it's one of these things where you say, why do I continue to be a fan? So.
Well, in fairness, they were getting spat at constantly.
Wow.
And they just
different.
said, we're off.
Yeah.
It was a State of Euphoria tour.
Okay. Yeah,
So,
that's...
but they were great up until that point.
Yeah. Yeah, there were...
It's a tough gig.
Yeah. Yeah, they were in the middle of their, of their full of energy. So, Jeremy just went on us. So anyway, we're going to wrap this up. I know for Anthony, it is extremely late as well. Us people on this side of the world, it is well over, it is 2:15 in the morning for me, 1:15 for Anthony. So on that note, I thank all of you guys for being here. Anyone who's watching the replay or listening to the replay of this, thank you. Thank you, all of my patrons, for your continued support. I appreciate it. These are always great chats. And we'll have another one next month. We just have to figure out what band we're going to be discussing. So we'll be voting on that within Patreon. If you enjoyed this and want to be a patron, $2 a month gets you in. So there you go. Thanks, everyone, for being here, for watching, listening, so on and so forth. And on that note, we will see you. What are you flashing there? $2? Are
It's
you
$2, man. It's
There you
$2.
go.
I'm willing to sponsor somebody who wants to join it. Oh, geez, I can't afford $2. I'll sponsor you. Okay.
There you go. In any event, see you next time. Thank you for
Thanks, Victor.
being here. Thanks all you guys, and we'll see you next time right here on Signals from Mars live stream.